What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Caught by Happy podcast. Coming to you this very first week of August. We are just barreling towards that all-important school starting date, and I don't know what the school year is looking like for you, wherever you are in the world, but here in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia, we are looking at a 100% virtual start, and that, my friends, is going to be tough sledding for many of us. As you may know, my wife is an elementary school teacher, and for our particular school district, that means that she must be in her classroom to broadcast her lessons virtually. So for her, she'll have to physically be at the school while her students will be logging on from home to learn. What that means for me, it looks like, is I will be solely responsible for our children logging into their lessons, making sure they stay engaged with their work and stay busy throughout the day, all while working my own full-time job from home. I know there are many others out there who will not have the luxury of having a parent who can stay home with the kids throughout the day. I also know that there are others out there who are trying to lure these good teachers away from their jobs in order to become a full-time nanny and a teacher to a pod of neighborhood kids. And hey, I can't say I blame them. I'm worried about what that means for the educational divide in this country. You know, we've got kids from upper income families getting the attention, care, and education they need, while you've got these kids from lower income families getting left behind. And it's just something to think about and to keep an eye on for sure. Otherwise, how's everybody feeling? You doing okay? You still wearing your masks? I hope you are, but I also hope you're covering up your nose as well as your mouth. What the hell is up with that? What with your people with your big schnoz just hanging out on top of your mask? You're not doing yourselves any favors with that one, fella. Tuck that big guy in and let's keep your respiratory droplets to yourself. Okay, today on the show, I'm talking with Bridget Cobb. Bridget is the owner of Bridget Cobb Coaching, and she's the host of the podcast, The Energetic Entrepreneur, where she inspires business owners and side hustlers to keep their eyes on the prize and focus their energy on reaching their goals. She's a little bit of a different guest for this show since, as you know, most of the people I have on are people who love what they do, or they have a hobby or a side hustle, or they're in the middle of pursuing their passion. What Bridget does is she gives these people the strategies they need to keep at it, to shift their mindset and realize their full potential through coaching. So if you've been inspired by some of my previous guests, or if you are in the process of building your own empire, I think you might appreciate what Bridget has to say. And of course, you can check out the show notes to find links to Bridget's website, her podcast, and you can reach out to her directly if you want her to help you shift your way of thinking as well. And as always, I've got a few links to some of the products and services that I use, and using those links to shop just helps support the production of this podcast, so I encourage you to check those out as well. All right, let's get into it. I did enjoy this chat with Bridget. I think she's got a lot of great advice for entrepreneurs and side hustles, or really just anyone who has a goal that they're trying to achieve. She can give you the tools to shift your way of thinking and start focusing on what really matters in business and in life. And I bet she keeps her nose inside her mask too. So here's my chat with Bridget Cobb. Well, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm doing really good, actually.
And you're out in Seattle.
I am. Yeah, I've been here for 4 years, a little over 4 years now. So settling in. I was living overseas for many, many years and came back to the U.S. So it's been a good transition.
Were you a military brat?
No, actually, I was living in Australia. I just wanted to move overseas. I grew up overseas, not military related. As a kid, lived in Singapore for many years.
Wow.
Then moved back with my family. We lived in Atlanta for years. The whole family left. Everybody left the country again, except for me. And I finished college and started working, and I made this decision that I was going to live in Australia one day. This was very important to me because I had a very good friend in Singapore when I was a little kid who was Australian, and I just made the decision that I definitely have to live there one day. So 3 years out of college, I found a job that was headquartered. This little company was headquartered in Sydney, and I thought, I'm going to work for that company, and I'm going to transfer to Australia through that company. And
wow.
So I ended up getting a job, and it took me 3 years, and I convinced him to transfer me to Sydney. And I was out there for about 10 years.
And before that, you had never been to Australia before?
I actually had been when I was a
Oh,
kid. We had visited for a week, 2 weeks holiday or something. So I had been there briefly to the Great Barrier Reef as a little girl. But yeah, just that friend that I had, and I was somehow obsessed with the country, and I thought, yeah, that's definitely going to be part of my life.
where was the rest of your family at that point?
Everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere. Parents were in Dubai. I had a sister in Korea. I had a brother in Spain. Another sister was in China, and everyone just kind of moved around every couple of years. And I was in Atlanta. Finally, when I decided to move overseas, they all started coming back to the US one by one. And lo
Yeah.
and behold, most of them moved West Coast. So,
Are they?
yeah, I have a lot of family here on the West Coast, which is crazy.
That's good. Well, how did you like your time in Australia?
I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
I so much so that I became a citizen. So I got my citizenship in 2015. I was really settled in there, and ready to make that kind of my permanent home. And then I met my partner there. Lo and behold, Amazon came calling to Australia and picked him up as an engineer. So
Mhm.
he's Australian. He said, "Oh, well, I've never lived in the US. How do you feel about it? Let's move to Seattle." And I said, "Oh, all right. It's been a few years since I've been back, and I'm already an Australian citizen. So yeah, let's do it." So we actually moved here because of his job.
So you're a US you're dual citizenship, right?
Dual. Mm-hmm. That's
You
right.
had no problem getting back here?
No, it was refreshing. I had been out for almost 10 years, and I had family here, so I thought this is a great time to get back. He gets to know my family. I get to reconnect with them, and yeah, so it worked out really well. And whether we go back one day, we're definitely going to go back one day. But when that happens, we haven't really decided.
And how's he like it here?
I think he likes it. Yeah, I mean, there's so much that he likes. The microbrewery scene that just doesn't exist in Australia.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. Another one of his favorite things. This all sounds very bar related, but the fact that you can walk up to a bar and sit there. Because in Australia, you're not allowed to stay at the bar. You have to order your drink and then back away. There's no chairs. You can't talk to the bartender. You just have to order and leave.
Well, you can't really do that now anyways either.
Well, you can't do it now, but yeah, it was one of his favorite things that you could sit and talk to people at the bar and mingle, and he just thought that was really cool.
Has he, like, taken on any American customs? Has he started liking American football? Is he a Seahawks fan? That kind of stuff?
I think from the standpoint of I think the activities, because he's a big outdoors guy, so he's loving the camping scene that's here in Seattle, mountain biking. There's so much to do outside here. Of course, you've got a small window to do it in. That's one thing we were kind of shocked. We were living on the beach in Sydney, Bondi Beach, beautiful sunshine for most of the year, swimming. You could be in the ocean for most of the year. And we moved here in January of 2016, in like the height of the worst winter you've ever known. And we were just like, what did we do? Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Well, we figured it out eventually. Go skiing. You go skiing in the winter. That gets you out of the rain of the city, up into the mountains where it's really beautiful, and then hiking and camping in the summer. That's the survival tactic for Seattle.
And it's your first experience with the West Coast also too at that point, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. First time I've ever lived on the West Coast. And so I'm still figuring it out. And I had been out for so long. I had no network really here. I had, kind of start over, make new friends, find a job because I left my job in Australia to come over here. And so I
Yeah.
was unemployed for a while looking for work. So yeah, it was quite the experience.
So did you eventually find a job over there?
I did. Yeah. I ended up landing with a large tech company based here in Seattle. So I've been working there for quite some time.
You're still there?
I'm still there. Yeah. And so that's part of kind of what I do. That's part of my mission is working with side hustlers. I myself am a side hustler. So I have a full-time 9 to 5, pretty demanding one. And then I also have my own company, and I run that before, after we like I get it done, right? But my audience and my customer, my client, she's a hardworking corporate woman that has a passion kind of outside of a corporate life? And,
Hmm.
how do you bring it to life? That's the question.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to talk to you because the people that I have had on my show, pretty much most of them, have some kind of hobby or a side hustle or a passion that
Yeah.
they do when they're not working their 9 to 5. You're a little different because you help them focus, you help them motivate. How would you describe what you do for them?
I take it to basically the most basic level possible, which is we all come equipped with a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of enthusiasm that we can carry. We have to self motivate. It's how you approach. I mean, you're kind of taught how to approach your 9 to 5. You've got a lot of training around how to do that. You've got your peers, you've got your managers, you've got people that you can look at to kind of emulate. When you start to take that branch off into entrepreneurship, it is very easy to compare yourself to your corporate experience. This is how I get ahead. This is how I know I'm successful. I get a performance review. I get pay raises. I get all these things to tell me that I'm doing a good job. And then we try to transfer that to our entrepreneurial experience, except, oops, it's just us. We're a solopreneur. How do we know we're doing a good job? How do we measure? So most of what I do and most of the work that I do is around the mindset that you need to have to balance the difference between those two experiences. It's really easy for us to be passionate, but then not know how to measure our own success when it comes to just our own efforts. It's very easy to beat ourselves up because we might not see the same progress that we've seen, what we're doing corporate right in our corporate experience right now. And we forget that we have like 20 years experience over there and
Yeah.
teammates and everything else. A lot of the work that I do is around mindset. I do a lot of work that basically with energy. Like I said, we bring different energy to work, and that energy can range from kind of a victim mindset of like, everything's against me, and there's no way I'm going to get out of this, all the way up to lofty transcendence, which is not very functional day to day, but it can really be a
Hmm.
space of genius, like when you really get a creative genius spike, right? And there's a lot of space in between that you can bring to work every day. So the work that I do is looking at how do you show up? How do you show up on a day to day basis when you clock in for your day job? How do you show up when you clock in for your side hustle or for your own business? And what does it look like in between?
And what do you tell people who are kind of wrestling with the priorities of it all? I mean, especially now,
Yeah.
what we're dealing with a lot of people not having the best job security outlook, dealing with, say, I need to get a paycheck, I need
Mhm.
to provide for my family, I need the benefits, that kind of stuff. But I also am really passionate about whatever it is that I'm doing on the side.
Yeah.
But at the end of my 9 to 5, I'm beat. I'm working from home. I got the kids I'm trying to teach. I've got the kids I'm trying to entertain and feed and do all this stuff. What are you telling them to like stay focused on whatever it is that their end goal is?
Yes. The conversation always goes back to the why. Why are you doing this? Why is this project, whether it be your side business, why are you passionate about that? What do you want to get out of that? That conversation will lead to strategies. It'll lead to setting expectations. That's really where we want to go. We want to be able to set expectations between you spend 9, could be 10, depends who you work for, hours a day on your day job. You might spend an hour, maybe 2 hours if you're lucky on your own business on a weekday. And then yes, if you're able to spend time on the weekends, some people aren't able to do that. So what we do is we're essentially talking through the expectations that they've set for themselves. Are they reasonable? What do they want to get out of this experience? What are their goals, and what's the timeline? And then we work back, because where
Mhm.
you start to go when you set a goal, you set a timeline for yourself, you set expectations, and then you start to measure yourself. And if you hit an area where you think, I'm behind, I'm not going to hit that goal, it is very easy at that moment to go all the way down to that lowest level of energy, that victim mindset, and be like, there's nothing I can do about this. It's completely out of my control. The fact that I have a dozen kids running around, the fact that I have a busy lifestyle, I have a husband or I have a partner, the fact that I have maybe I don't have a family, but I have friends that I need to keep my relationships going with, or whatever the circumstances. We a lot of times can't control our external circumstances. We cannot control the fact that we might have a sick parent living with us that we need to look after. What we can control is how we think about it, what we make it mean about us, our success. So the fact that I need to look after my sick parent, do I make that mean that I'm a bad entrepreneur? That I don't know how to prioritize?
Mm.
Or can I take a look at that and say, okay, I have priorities. I lay them out. I let that help me set expectations for my business, and I can set goals accordingly. So now I set a more realistic goal with mini milestones that I know are much more realistic for me to hit. Psychologically, I can kick some goals, and now I'm starting to see progress. Because sometimes we set such big goals with such unrealistic expectations that we're kind of nestling into that victim mindset of like, I'm probably not going to reach this anyway, so I'll just set this goal. It's never going to happen anyway. It's very easy for us to think that way. So yes, time is of the essence, and everybody has a reason why they don't have enough time. We get back to kind of the stories that we tell ourselves, the expectations we set for ourselves, and how to manage that.
It sounds like it's more of a shift in your way of thinking,
Yes.
right? So, how do you coach people? What do you tell them to start making that shift? Because it's not something that you can do overnight. Like,
No.
if you're trained to think in that victim
Yes.
mindset, how do you start training yourself to not think that
It
way?
is like putting on your detective, little hat and spyglass and going hunting. So the coaching process to find a really good coach and to utilize that coach. What you should come prepared to with a coaching session is a goal that you want to achieve. That's the first thing any good coach will ask you. What do you want to get out of the session today? What do you want to talk about? And it might be, there's a project that I have coming up that's really important to me, and I'm a little bit nervous about completing it. The work that's done in the session is about what do you think is going to get in your way of doing that? What do you think is going to get in the way? Now, there could be things that get in your way, like, well, I might have to travel or something like that. I might have to go away on a trip. Or it could be that, you know what? I've had to do this project for a month and I haven't started it. And I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't started it. I know I have to get it done.
Mm,
In fact, I've
right.
I've known about this for months, and I now it's due next week, and I haven't even started it. So the work is getting done now around what's actually stopping you, what thoughts are stopping you. The coaching experience is about digging through all of the mess, all little messages that are going on in the back of our heads, and freeing you from some of those we call thought gremlins or assumptions, limiting beliefs that are stopping you from doing what you want to do. And a lot of times those voices are saying, you're not good enough. You're an imposter. They're going to figure out you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
me.
Oh, man. It's everybody. Imposter syndrome is real. It's a real thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
And the cool thing about it is that I love it when you can give it a name, because giving something a name, I think, takes the power away from it and it brings it back to you. So when you're able to say, oh, I see you thought you're imposter syndrome. I know exactly what you are. And because I've identified you, I could do something with you.
And I didn't know what imposter syndrome was until like a year ago.
Oh,
That was the first time I heard that
right.
term. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That sounds familiar.
Right? Yes, yes. And then you're like, sneaky little guy. Like, I could
Yeah.
find you now. I know what you sound like. I know what your mission is. Syndrome, along with a lot of limiting beliefs, the mission of that thought is to keep you safe. That's the thought's goal.
Right.
Don't take a risk. Don't make yourself uncomfortable. Don't step out of line. Don't think out of the side of the box. It's safe in here. Stay in the status quo. So that's the goal. When you understand the goal, then you can say, I see what you're trying to do, but I'm going to say no thanks. So I'm going to choose to put you down and step into the uncomfortable because I recognize it now. I can call you what you are, and then I can say thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to do it anyway. It doesn't mean you don't feel uncomfortable, because you still feel uncomfortable. You still get to go through all the
Mhm.
feelings, but you take action regardless. And that's where
Yeah, you take power
that's
over it.
it. Yeah, you take power over it, and you kind of own all of the feelings that go along with it. And, that's another part of being a coach. So first is exploratory. What's going on in there? What's kind of simmering in the background that's stopping you from taking the action? And those sessions can get vulnerable. You can go in and you might have to do some soul searching and get a little uncomfortable. What follows from that is action. So it should end with an action plan. Okay, you've seen this thought. What is it that you want to do? You want to complete X. You got to do the project. What are you going to do when you feel uncomfortable? That's the action plan. The action plan is, how do you approach when you inevitably know you hit a wall? Because we know we're going to hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Let's plan for that. And then there's thought exercises you can do. There's calling it what it is and saying, oh, I knew you were going to get here. I was anticipating you arriving, trying to throw me off track and mess me up. So welcome. I'm glad you showed up. I'm going to say, go ahead and stay there, and I'm going to walk on past you. And that's self-coaching. So that's another thing that you get into, is learning to coach yourself through those instances.
Let me ask you what you tell people, how you coach people through moments of failure when they don't hit a goal, where they don't hit a milestone. And, it happens for, I'm sure, everybody.
Yes.
They're not exactly where they want to be, where they thought they would be at month 6, at month 12.
Yeah, nobody is exempt from failure. If you are not failing, my suggestion is you're not trying hard enough. So if you are not
Mm,
failing, you are not pushing yourself. You actually are still staying in a comfort zone. You can set goals, but if you know you can achieve the goal, it's not really, I heard somebody say once, it's not an experiment if you know it's going to work. That's not an experiment.
right.
So I would say embrace failure. Not that it feels good. I always want to make sure I distinguish between, it's not about, I love failure, I'm so excited that this totally bombed, because that's not realistic. No, it's going to suck and it's going to not feel so good. It's how much time we spend in that feeling. Once we realize, I'm really bummed that did not work, how much time do we linger in that space versus how much time do we spend now shifting to what we call growth mindset? Okay, failed,
Hmm.
bombed. Let's pull it apart. Why did it fail? What happened? What can I learn from it? What am I definitely going to do again? What am I definitely not going to do again? Maybe a small tweak here or there. So I would welcome failure. Again, not going to feel great. And I would never tell someone that they should love to feel failure. But what they can do, at least, is look at it and say, I failed because I pushed the envelope. All right. And I tried something maybe I was unfamiliar with. It was uncomfortable. I put myself out of my comfort zone. Maybe I pushed it a little bit too far. Maybe I did make a reckless decision. What did I learn about it? And how can I course
Yeah.
correct?
That's exactly right. What did I learn from it? Because failure is always a learning experience.
Right. Yeah. It's always a learning experience. And emotion is also a real experience. So again, you might have a moment to sit there and just mourn your decision, your loss, and just
Mm,
say, wow, that really was terrible. And I would never suggest that somebody suppress that feeling or, fake being happy about the situation. Don't dwell in it. Have your moment, mourn the loss, whatever it is, and then step through it.
awesome. I wanted to ask you another thing, and I was listening to your last couple of podcast episodes, and we can talk about your podcast in a little bit. But the second to last one was about the side hustle versus entrepreneurship. Like, are you a side hustler or are you an entrepreneur? And I think the trouble might be for people who are side hustlers is that they need to understand that that's okay to be a side hustler.
Yes,
They're not necessarily going to build a
that's
huge
right.
enterprise, but they could be extremely happy and extremely successful doing a good side hustle. So can you talk about the difference between that type of mindset, like recognizing which one you
Yes,
are?
this is a perfect example of going back to your why. What's driving you? What's your long-term vision? What's your goal for yourself? That episode is really about the power of words. It's about the power of the words that you use to describe your own self. So, for those of you that didn't hear the episode, I talk about how I like to refer to myself. Do I refer to myself as a side hustler or an entrepreneur? And I prefer to refer to myself as an entrepreneur because I find side hustler doesn't support the importance that I put against my own business. Now, that is not going to be true for everybody.
Right.
I like to say, no, I work two jobs. I work my full-time job and I work my part-time job, but they are both jobs that I work that are equally important to me. And therefore, I could call my day job the side hustle because I really see them on an equal playing field. But whether I call myself a side hustler, an entrepreneur, a business, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is what's the power of the word for you. When I say something like, "Oh, well, this is just a side project for me," even just using the word "just" is in my mind kind of psychologically putting that job in a priority. It's putting it in a place. I'd
Sure.
say when we're referring to ourselves, be conscious of the words you're choosing, the power. What's the power behind them? Go back and say, why do I choose that word? Why am I happy with the power that it brings to me? Because if you feel empowered in Side Hustler, awesome. Use it, love it, embrace it. I think the side hustle in itself has become a really empowered wave of energy that's kind of moved through, especially the Gen Z and everyone's got a side hustle now, and it's a way for them to express themselves. It's a way for them to really have full creative control when maybe their full-time 9 to 5 doesn't allow for it.
When you're young, it's a way for you to explore and figure out if
Right.
this is something that you truly enjoy. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So there's power in that. So I say go through and look at your vocabulary because words really truly have a lot of power. My ultimate goal is always to understand, is that word serving me? Is that thought serving me? So
Yeah.
if I view myself as a side hustler, does it evoke the energy that I want to bring towards my business? In my case, it doesn't. Entrepreneur does. To me, that invokes the power that I want to go forth and build my business.
I think it's a matter of matching up your goals
Yes,
with the language that you use.
100%.
All right. So let's talk about your podcast. Tell
Yes.
me about how that got started, what you're doing with it, what your goals are for it.
Yeah. So, fun story about the podcast. So, I started the podcast back. It's called The Energetic Entrepreneur, and I started that back in November of 2018. I was so excited because I had actually been podcasting for 2 years previous to that, but for my 9 to 5. So it was an internal only podcast for my company, my 9 to 5. I loved it. I was having fun. I was creating like this whole podcast ecosystem within the company and really, really loving it. But at the same time, I was building my own business outside of the 9 to 5. So it slowly developed where I thought, okay, I have a choice now. I feel like I want to take this energy and this love of podcasting. And I think it's time to turn it and get it a little bit selfish and put it towards my own ventures. And I didn't
Mhm.
want to have two podcasts at the same time. So I actually ended my corporate podcast and launched my personal company podcast. Now, it didn't launch under the name The Energetic Entrepreneur. And this is kind of the fun story. I thought I came up with the most clever name of all time and launched it without a care in the world. I actually did Google the word. The word is passionpreneur. I Googled it.
Mhm.
It came up on all sorts of websites. It was originally called the Passionpreneur Experience.
Mhm.
So I Googled the word. I'm like, great, it's everywhere. It's obviously up for common use. Started producing, and I got 30 episodes in, and I got a cease and desist letter in the mail
Oh,
from a group of lawyers.
someone owns that trademark, huh?
They sure do. And I never thought to go and look. Now, well, I did go and look to see if websites were registered, and
Mhm.
I saw all sorts of companies using the word. What I didn't realize is all of those companies were based in different countries. So
Okay.
yes, there were lots of different companies with the name, but they'd all separately trademarked the word. So I got the cease and desist. I thought, oh, holy crap, I'm going to have to lose the whole podcast. I consulted a lawyer. I went through and did all the right things and thought, nope, fair and square. This is a trademark word and I need to change. And so I went through a rebranding process a month ago or so.
Hmm.
And it was fantastic because when you first start an idea, and this goes for all entrepreneurs who are just starting out. You just first start an idea, you get all these brainstorms. You might think of a company name, you might think of some product names, And then you get a little bit into it and you start to really define the passion. You start to
Yeah.
really define the purpose and where it's going and how it's going to shift. And lo and behold, the original name that you came up with doesn't really fit the direction of where you figure it out, where you want to go. And I think that actually worked out for me because I was able to sit down and say, I really am going to rebrand from scratch and think about all the progress I've made in the past year or so, what I've learned about myself, what I've learned about my customer, and rebrand from there. That's where the energetic entrepreneur was born. And I couldn't be happier. I really love how it turned out. It was scary as all heck, I'll tell you what, but I wouldn't suggest anyone to go through that.
Yeah.
Definitely search your trademarks, people. It was a great learning experience, and that's where I am now.
Yeah, that's good advice though for people who are kind of just starting out on their journey to take a step back after a few months or a year or two into it and just kind of see, is my original vision lining up with the way it's actually played out? And if not,
Yeah,
maybe it's time to change that original vision and change that
reevaluate.
name. Yeah.
Exactly. It's okay. It's a two-way door. So you don't have to say, well, that's what I originally thought. I guess I'm stuck with it. No, no, no. You should evolve. You should
Yeah.
definitely evolve and be able to pivot. But I guess I didn't really talk about what the podcast is. So it's a weekly show. I focus on the mindset, energy, and strategy an entrepreneur needs to build a business, their own business, while they work a 9 to 5.
Mhm.
And I do both solo episodes and interviews. So I'll pull in people that I think have a really powerful message to share, a lesson to share about how they built their business as a side hustle. And then I talk about my experience in doing this in real time.
Yeah.
So I am building my business while I work a pretty demanding 9 to 5. And I talk about, there's a whole episode about my snafu with the podcast name. And I want to share what it looks like in real time. So yeah, weekly release, and it is a lot of fun to do, I have to say.
I think that angle of you being in it as well, going through it at the same time is probably especially valuable for those people who are listening
Yeah, tell you,
because
never ending content.
right, right.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you even got into this world in the first place. How you recognized that you wanted to help people along and coach them and make them be the best business owner, entrepreneur, side hustler that they can be.
I majored in marketing. That was my vision. I wanted to be in advertising. That was originally my big goal for my life. I just loved the idea of advertising and how it worked and the power of influence and all of that. And I studied marketing in college. I went straight into the most boring job you could ever want to do, which was working for an insurance company in their marketing department. So basically, all I did was ship out golf ball towels and stress balls
Yeah.
to golf tournaments. I really started to learn about what my skill set was. I eventually switched to that Australian company, and that really changed my whole life because that company was a new business acquisition company. You essentially would travel out to different radio stations, newspaper, television, and train their sales teams. So it was a sales training company, but we also did advertising acquisition. So get new customers onto the platform, onto the TV station, or into the newspaper so that they would fill up their advertising quotas. And so as I grew through that company, I really fell into facilitation, into training. And that became a big passion of mine. Now, that job, when I moved to Australia with that job, I ended up getting promoted and became a full time trainer. My territory was Africa. So I was commuting from Sydney to Johannesburg, and I was working the southern half of Africa.
That's a hell of a commute.
Botswana, 15 hours, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's no joke. Yeah, and I would travel through Kenya and South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, training these sales teams on sales techniques and the art of persuasion and all these things. And what I really enjoyed out of that job was the one-on-one mentoring that I did with the reps.
Mhm.
Where we talk about what did they want to do with their lives, what was their big goal, how did they want to grow in their profession. And slowly but surely, I found that everywhere I was going, every job that I had, I kept fitting in this one-on-one mentoring, coaching, consulting relationship, and I found that it was drawing me each time more and more strongly towards it. And it wasn't until I packed up from Australia in 2016 and moved back here to the US that I was jolted out of my corporate experience, because up to that point, I had been in corporate for my whole career. I grew up in corporate and I was very comfortable there. You know, you get the paycheck, you get the
Mm-hmm.
insurance, all that, and you can get quite comfortable. And it was the first time, because I'd never been unemployed in my life, and now suddenly I'm unemployed looking for work, that I had nothing but time to think about, what do I really want to do?
Yeah.
What truly makes me happy? And I actually got a coach. So I started going through a coaching program to kind of figure out what my next step was. And it became overwhelmingly obvious to me. And in fact, it all happened. It all lightning bolted down to one question that my partner asked me while we were walking on the beach one day. You know, what would you do if you had $100 million? What would you do if money was no object, no problem, and you could do whatever you want? And I was like, oh, I'd be a full-time coach. I didn't even flinch. I didn't even think about it.
Mm.
That's what I would do. And the next question was, okay, how do you start? What do you need to do? And at that moment, I thought, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to do this right now. Even though I've got my full-time job, even though it doesn't matter. I'm doing it now because I don't think I'll ever be as pumped about this as I am right now. And I'm going for it. And that's really all it took. I jumped straight into certification and I really never looked back. And I haven't regretted it. I've loved it. And now this experience that I'm going through, working for this quite intense company while building my business, it allows me to earn the right to work with my customers. It really builds my own experience, and that ultimately helps them. So yeah, I'm freaking loving it. I'm not gonna lie.
So you mentioned you got certified. What do you have to do to get certified?
Well, coaching's a little bit tricky. So the
Mm-hmm.
coaching industry is unregulated, which means anybody and their mom can call themselves a coach without any certification whatsoever. Certification to me was important. So there's one governing body for coaching. It's called ICF. That's the International Coaching Federation. And it kind of looks across coaching, all the different coaching schools and certification programs, and it lays out some guidelines around, what they would call a certified coach. You don't have to be a certified coach to coach, but I felt strongly about it. So I actually went to a coaching school. It's called IPEC, where it's an intensive 8-month, 9-month program. That is basically like a night school. I did it on nights and weekends after work, and go through hours and hours of coaching and role playing and practice and exams. And so very intensive work, a lot of self-coaching on yourself, and setting goals. But I'll tell you, just as easily, someone could just say, I think I'm going to be a coach today. And bam, you are.
Yeah.
So
But you're the real deal.
yeah, it's not required. Some people prefer, they're gonna vet a coach and say, is this person coach? Is it ICF certified? And some
Mm-hmm.
people just say, I just want to connect with the person. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit out there.
What's the difference between a coach and, say, like a motivational speaker?
Oh, yeah, good. Actually, I have a great episode I could recommend, which is episode 16 of The Energetic Entrepreneur. What's the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a consultant? Because those three get mixed up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they have definite differences. I'll start from the bottom. A consultant. A consultant is brought on to tell you what to do. So they will say, you need to follow steps 1, 2, and 3. I've laid them out for you. Or even better yet, you hire me and I will do it. So what do you want done? I'll go do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the consultant is there to either tell you exactly what to do or to do it for you. A mentor is there to share their own personal experience and advise you. They're not going to do it for you. They're going to expect you to go and do, but they're going to tell you their own personal experience so you can lean on that, and you can either copy them or you can beg, borrow, and steal from them. But they're there based on their own personal experience. A coach is doing none of that. They're not doing the work for you. They're not even telling you what to do. What a good coach should be doing is helping you get the result and the decision, the solution for yourself. So they are asking probing questions. They are calling you on statements that you're making. So, for example, you might say, well, I have to get this done by tomorrow or it's a failure. And so they'll ask, why? Why do you have to get it done by tomorrow? Let's talk it out and see if that's true. Well, I don't have to get it done tomorrow. I just feel like I should. Okay, well, why do you feel? So now we're getting to that path where they say, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm actually putting a lot of weight on me doing this because I always let myself down. And I know that if I don't do it tomorrow, I'm going to give up. And so actually what I could say is if I can get half of this done from now until, so you start working through it and managing the expectations that you're setting on for yourself. But the thought is that the best buy-in possible comes from when you come up with the solution yourself.
So coach is helping you figure out on your own what the answer is to whatever your question is.
That's right. The belief is that you have all the answers. So you just need help in bringing that out. And that's going to come through asking questions. It's going to come through making observations, challenging a certain thought, a statement, and prodding a little bit. And then another big part of the coach relationship is accountability. Again, at that back half of that coaching session, you should be into action plan for the following week or the 2 weeks, whatever your cadence is. So that's about, what are you going to do? What's going to get in your way? How will you know you're successful? What does that look like? What will you do if you get a third of the way there? So they're really poking at your plan to see how mentally prepared you are to go there.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about a coach of your own or anybody that you look up to in the coaching world for yourself.
Yeah.
Who do you aspire to be like as a coach?
I definitely follow quite a few coaches. One of the people that I love to follow is Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School. She's been in the game for a long time. She is 100% experience based. She's a great example of an uncertified coach. She talks about quite a bit. She created her own school with her own certification, which is not ICF certified. Doesn't bother her in the least. She talks about it quite openly. And that's her choice. But I do love her philosophy, her ethos. She's very thought-based as well, which I like. I also do kind of a thought-based approach, which means we have total control over our own thoughts, and thoughts create your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. And that's her philosophy from the top down as well. So I identify with that. But I also make a point to connect with coaches. For instance, I'm part of a mastermind group, and I meet with a group of fellow coaches that are in my same sphere. Most of them are actually full-time coaches, but there are a couple side hustlers in there, and we meet to talk about our experiences, in real life, and connect with each other and share and cry on a shoulder if we need to. But that community is so important to the journey. And that's any entrepreneur. That's why I have a community for side hustlers. So it's also called the Energetic Entrepreneur. And it's where you can come in and you can talk about your journey, and you can learn from other side hustlers.
Well, tell me about your goals then. So you've got the 9 to 5, probably are pretty comfortable there, but you've got this, I don't know if I should call it a
You
side
can
hustle.
call it a
Not a
side
side
hustle. It
hustle.
doesn't bother me in the least.
What's the goal? What's the end goal? Are you taking that? Are you going to try to take that to your full-time gig? That this is what you're going to do?
Hey,
Or are you happy with the way it is now?
I am happy with the way it is now. It's funny enough, I don't talk about it a lot since I am actively employed, but I will tell you that 9 to 5 or not, my company is going to grow, and I have big plans for where I want to take this space. The focus on the community. I feel like there is a lot of focus and energy and attention put towards full-time entrepreneurs. And that can be a challenging space for the side hustler because they feel like they're not full into a 9 to 5 employee, and they're not full into a full-time entrepreneur, and where do they exist? And so I want to give them that space where they can feel like they are achieving, that they're accomplishing, that, their goals are worthy, even if they're not full time. Yeah, I have a lot of big plans for where I want to go. I mean, with the company itself, I'm focusing highly on one-on-one coaching right now. But I develop courses. I've got the podcast. I'd love to get into video creation and just put that energy out into the world. That's kind of my big goal.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll get there.
Yeah, it's lots of
You're a
fun.
very focused and determined person.
You know what? It could get a little overwhelming even for me sometimes, where I'm like, geez, Bridget, like slow down a little bit. Yeah, but it is a lot of fun. And I, people will often ask me, Bridget, what do you think your superpower is? That's kind of a fun question that people like to ask on podcasts and stuff. And I always say my superpower is energy transfer. So I want people to leave more excited. When they leave a conversation with me, I want to transfer my energy to them. So I want them to leave more excited, more motivated, more driven than when they showed up.
Well, I definitely feel that way.
Yeah, you're feeling it. You're feeling pumped because you can, I think that's part of the fun. And if I can do that through the show, through the podcast, if I can do it through training that I can offer or one-on-one coaching, that's my sweet spot. That's where my strengths lie. So I want to capitalize on as much as possible.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, man, it's super fun.
Anything else you want to hit on before we call it a day?
I would just say, if you are out there thinking about launching your own business and you're on the fence, my recommendation is just to sit down and really think about why you want to do that, what that underlying passion is that you're sitting with. And when you can connect to that, then release yourself from the expectations that you've set about it comparing to, your 9 to 5 of 20 years and say, okay, what does it look like to start from scratch? And how can I frame up even small steps as big wins? Because you can do that mentally in your mind and say, the fact that I set up an email account, big win. I created an email account. Awesome. That's a big start. That's the step in the next direction. And then you keep moving forward. If you need help with it, obviously I'm available. Like I said, I got a couple of different ways, if it's okay to share, on how to get in touch with me.
Please do.
All righty. So you can reach me on my website, which is bridgetcobbcoaching.com. Through that, I have a bunch of free resources. I have a free course. I have a free business plan up there that you can use, even an easy peasy sprint planner, which helps you kind of lay out 2 weeks worth of activities that you might want to build to get you started. The podcast is there, obviously. You can get the podcast, The Energetic Entrepreneur, and then the Facebook community, which I'm really excited about. And that's also called The Energetic Entrepreneur. It's a private group. So if you are building a side hustle and you don't want your full-time job to know, because some people want to keep that quite separate, I made sure I didn't do that in LinkedIn because that might be your professional space for now. You can come on in and you can speak freely about your side hustle without worrying about your company finding out or outing you. So yeah, you can come in and join the group there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This was tons of fun.
This is great. And I am motivated and I am ready to
yes, right?
Go get it.
Let's do it. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. This was lots of fun.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that talk with Bridget, and I also hope you check out her podcast, The Energetic Entrepreneur. Visit her website and all that good stuff. If you like what you heard, or if you like what you've been hearing on the Caught by Happy podcast, please leave a rating or a review on your favorite podcast provider if possible. Or you can drop me a note at caughtbyhappy@gmail.com. You can also send me a note or DM me on any of my social channels. We're talking Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those good ones. And if you want to come on the show and talk about whatever's going on in your life, the calendar is wide open. I'm ready. Let's get you on here. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope to be back soon with more episodes of the Caught by Happy podcast. We are powered by Ring Media. Join the Ring Media Network and let's make good stuff together.